Have you ever felt that there is a part of you that you do not fully understand? That inner voice that sometimes scares you or makes you question who you really are? What if I told you that this dark part of your personality could be just the key to discovering your true purpose? Carl Gustav Jung, one of the greatest thinkers in 20th century psychology, believed that ignoring this shadow is like living only half of your existence. For him, everything we repress, our fears, hidden desires, repressed impulses, forms a second identity within us. The problem? The more we deny it, the more it controls us in the shadows. But what if, instead of running away from it, we learn to integrate this forgotten part of ourselves? How could this transform the way we view life, relationships, and even our deepest ambitions? In this video, you will understand how Jungian philosophy can help you see your dark side not as an enemy, but as a guide for your journey of self-knowledge. We will explore powerful concepts, such as the shadow, the self, and the process of individuation, so that you can better understand yourself and find clarity about your true purpose. So, if you are looking for more meaning in your life, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell, because what we are going to reveal here can completely change your perception of who you really are. Now, before we dive into these transformative concepts, we need to understand something fundamental. From childhood, we learn to behave according to what is accepted by society, the family, and the groups to which we belong. They tell us what is right and wrong, what we should feel and what we should hide. Without realizing it, we began to build a mask, an identity that fits within these expectations. But what about everything that doesn't fit into this image? Where do our fears, repressed desires, and impulses considered inappropriate go? Carl Jung called this hidden part of our personality the shadow. It is formed by everything that we deny in ourselves, but which, even so, continues to exist on an unconscious level. And the most curious? The more we try to ignore it, the more it silently influences our choices, emotions, and behaviors. Imagine someone who has been taught to always be kind and never to express anger. This aggressive side does not disappear, it is just repressed and pushed to the back of the mind. Over time, this accumulated energy can manifest itself in unexpected ways: constant irritation, out-of-control emotional outbursts, or even feelings of guilt and inadequacy. The problem is not having a shadow, we all do. The real danger lies in denying its existence. Because everything that we don't recognize in ourselves ends up appearing in the external world. We project our repressed aspects onto others, seeing in them what we refuse to see in ourselves. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to bother you for no apparent reason? Often, what irritates us in others is a reflection of what we don't accept in ourselves. But what if, instead of running away from this hidden part, we learned to confront it? What if we could turn what we fear into strength? For Jung, integrating the shadow does not mean becoming dark, but rather becoming complete. Only when we accept all facets of our personality can we live authentically, without fear of who we really are. And it is exactly at this point that an essential question arises. If our shadow holds so much power over us, how can we access it consciously? How to take the first step on this journey of self-knowledge without being consumed by what we find inside us? The idea of facing the shadow itself may seem daunting at first glance. After all, who wants to look their fears, insecurities, and repressed desires in the face? However, running away from this dark side does not make it disappear. On the contrary, it only strengthens it, making it increasingly difficult to control. The good news is that there is a way to access this hidden part without being overwhelmed by it. The first step is to develop awareness about its existence. This means observing your own thoughts, emotions, and reactions without judgment, but with curiosity. Ask yourself, what bothers me about others? What situations arouse intense feelings, such as anger, envy, or shame? Often, these emotional reactions are direct clues about aspects of your shadow that have not yet been integrated. Another powerful method suggested by Jung is reflective writing. Writing down uncomfortable thoughts and repetitive patterns of behavior can help identify hidden parts of your psyche. Dreams are also a valuable portal for this process. According to Jung, the shadow often manifests itself through symbols and characters in our dreams, bringing messages from the unconscious that can reveal a lot about who we really are. In addition, practices such as meditation and self-analysis are fundamental for this inner dive. Creating a space of silence to observe allows repressed aspects to surface in a controlled manner, without the immediate pressure to react to them. Gradually, you begin to realize that your shadow is not your enemy. It is, in fact, an essential part of your identity, containing talents, potentials, and strengths that may have been forgotten throughout life. When we learn to look inward without fear, we take the first step toward individuation, a central concept of Jungian philosophy that represents the process of becoming whole beings. And it is at this point that we find one of Jung's greatest revelations. By integrating our shadow, we not only free ourselves from unconscious bonds, but also get closer to our true purpose. But how exactly does this journey of individuation lead us to a clearer and more authentic life purpose? How can accepting the shadow guide us to a fuller, more meaningful existence? When we begin to integrate our shadow, something extraordinary happens. We begin to become who we really are. This is the process that Carl Jung called individuation, the journey of self-discovery in which we abandon masks imposed by society and accept our true nature. But what does this have to do with finding our purpose? Absolutely everything. Our purpose is not something external, which we desperately need to seek in the world. It is already within us, waiting to be discovered. The problem is that, throughout life, we are conditioned to ignore our essence in exchange for approval and belonging. Thus, we distance ourselves from our most authentic desires and start to follow paths that do not always make sense to us. The shadow, in turn, guards not only the aspects that we fear, but also those that contain our true potential. Often, the talents we repress or the interests we ignore are fundamental parts of what we really came to do in this world. It is as if our purpose is hidden precisely in what we avoid looking at. Think of someone who, as a child, loved to draw, but was discouraged from pursuing an artistic path because it didn't make money. Or someone who has always had a penchant for questioning and seeking deep answers, but has been taught to follow rules without challenge. These suppressed parts of the personality do not disappear. They turn into frustration, a feeling of emptiness, and the constant impression that something is missing even when everything seems to be in place. The process of individuation allows you to rescue these lost pieces. By recognizing and integrating the shadow, we better understand our true desires and vocations. We stop acting out of fear and start making choices that align with who we really are. And when that happens, we find a greater meaning in life. A purpose that is not imposed from the outside in, but emerges from the inside out. But how can we apply this knowledge in everyday life? How do we turn this understanding into real change, capable of impacting not only our own journey, but also the world around us? Understanding the shadow and the process of individuation is a big step, but the real challenge lies in applying this knowledge in everyday life. There is no point in being aware of our repressed aspects if we do not know how to transform this perception into action. The big question is, how can we live authentically, aligned with our true purpose? The first step is to embrace self-expression without fear. Many times we fail to manifest our thoughts, feelings, and desires for fear of the judgment of others. But living an authentic life means having the courage to be who we really are, even if it goes against external expectations. This does not mean acting impulsively or irresponsibly, but rather making decisions based on what makes sense for our essence. Another fundamental aspect is to identify patterns of behavior that take us away from our true path. When we ignore our shadow, we often sabotage ourselves without realizing it. This can happen through fear of taking risks, procrastination, or even unconscious choices that keep us stuck in exhausting cycles. The key to breaking these patterns is constant self-observation. Whenever you feel resistance or discomfort about something, ask yourself, does this come from a real fear or a limiting belief? This simple reflection can open doors to profound changes. Additionally, connecting with activities that spark a genuine sense of purpose is essential. Often, what makes us feel alive and engaged is directly linked to our role in the world. It can be creating, teaching, helping, building, inspiring, anything that resonates with who we truly are. The secret is to pay attention to what gives us energy, rather than draining it. And finally, accept that the journey of self-knowledge is continuous. There is no end point, a moment when we will have all the answers. Individuation is a lifelong process, and each new phase brings different challenges and discoveries. The important thing is to walk with awareness, recognizing that each step towards authenticity brings us closer to our purpose. But there's one last crucial point we need to understand. How does this inner transformation affect not only our own lives, but also the people around us? When we begin to live authentically and in line with our true purpose, we are not the only ones to feel this transformation. Our internal change inevitably impacts the world around us. This happens because, by integrating our shadow and becoming more aware of who we are, we start to relate differently to others and to reality itself. Interpersonal relationships, for example, are undergoing a profound change. When we do not recognize our shadow, we project our repressed aspects onto others, seeing in them defects and flaws that actually belong to us. But by integrating this hidden part, we become more understanding and less reactive. We stop blaming the external world and start taking responsibility for our emotions and choices. This allows us to build healthier, more genuine connections that are based on empathy and understanding rather than unrealistic judgments and expectations. In addition, by freeing ourselves from conditioning and limiting patterns, we inspire others to do the same. People who live authentically awaken in others the desire to express themselves more truthfully. That's why individuals who follow their purpose, whatever it may be, radiate an energy that attracts, motivates, and transforms. They show, through their own example, that it is possible to live more fully and meaningfully. Another key aspect of this journey is the impact it has on the way we view life's challenges. When we are disconnected from who we really are, any obstacle feels like a burden. However, by accepting our wholeness, including our strengths and weaknesses, we develop genuine resilience. We start to face difficulties not as insurmountable barriers, but as opportunities for growth and learning. This brings us to an essential point. Purpose is not a final destination, but a continuous path of discovery and evolution. Each new phase of life brings changes, and the true meaning is precisely in walking with awareness, embracing each experience as part of the journey. But now we come to a crucial question. After all that we have explored about the shadow, individuation, and purpose, how can we consolidate these learnings in practice and take the next steps towards a more authentic and meaningful life? We come to the end of this journey exploring the shadow, the process of individuation, and the discovery of purpose. But in fact, this is not an end. It is an invitation to a new beginning. Everything we've discussed here points to an essential truth. Living authentically doesn't mean eliminating our shadow aspects, but integrating them and using them as a source of growth and transformation. The big mistake that many people make is to believe that the purpose of life is something that lies on the outside, as if it were a fixed destination waiting to be discovered. But Jung teaches us that purpose emerges from the inside out, as we become more aware of who we really are. Each repressed piece of our personality, each fear faced, and each part accepted brings us closer to this truth. Individuation, therefore, is not an easy path. Facing one's own shadow takes courage, for it means letting go of the illusions we have created about ourselves and taking responsibility for our existence. But this is exactly what makes us truly free. By freeing ourselves from the fear of judgment, external expectations, and unconscious projections, we begin to live a more authentic and meaningful life. More than that, this personal transformation directly impacts the world around us. When we become more conscious human beings and aligned with our true purpose, we positively influence those around us. We create deeper relationships, make more assertive decisions, and become agents of change. After all, people who live with purpose not only find meaning for themselves, but also inspire others to do the same. Well, now it's your turn to take the next step. Reflect on all that has been discussed here. Observe your shadow honestly, question your standards, discover the talents and desires that have been repressed over time. Use this knowledge to guide your decisions and consciously transform your life. If this content helped you see your journey from a new perspective, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, we continue exploring mind-expanding themes that help you become the best version of yourself. See you in the next video.